everybody. Good evening and welcome to GH Gospel Radio. It's always a pleasure to come your way with Let's Talk Marriage. Tonight we were supposed to have a guest speaker to talk to us about abuse because she's involved with a foundation that rescues women from abusive relationships. Unfortunately, she had a family emergency and couldn't make it, but the show must go on. So we're going to still talk about a closer look at abuse. So tonight's topic is Let's Talk Marriage, a closer look at abuse. Whenever we talk about marriage, whenever we are discussing marriage, we always give advice in general terms, things that would work for most marriages. But what we are really talking about is normal marriages. The advice that we give for normal marriages do not work for toxic marriages or abusive marriages. And I cannot emphasize it enough that a lot of the times when you are in an abusive relationship, all the rules for marriage do not work anymore. Everything flies out of the window. And it's difficult to be able to even pinpoint which kind of issues are due to being in a normal marriage and which kinds of issues are due to a toxic or abusive marriage. Because a lot of times the issues overlap. But if the issues come up in a normal, regular marriage, the way you would address it would definitely not work if you address it the same way in an abusive marriage. So, same issue, but different ways to approach it, depending on whether you are in a normal marriage or you are in an abusive marriage. So, tonight I want us all to pay attention. This 1 hour we are going to spend together will not give you all the answers you need, but it would at least open your eyes to the possibilities of where you stand so that you can do further investigation, or you can get help, or you can be at peace that whatever you're dealing with is normal. And so with time, everything is going to be all right. So whenever you're watching this, just know that we love you, we care about you, and if you have any questions, just go ahead and type it in the comment section. We will get to it and we will answer it for sure. If we don't answer it on the chat, we can even start a whole new topic about it. So tonight we are going to take a closer look at abuse. We want to make a distinction between normal, regular marriage and abusive marriage. We're going to lay out all the signs so that if yours is normal, you know that, okay, hold on, things will work out when we keep working at it. But when you're in an abusive marriage, you know that, okay, this is what it is and this is what I need to do. So let's dig in. Let's talk marriage, a closer look at abuse. I'm going to start off with a story that I found on Facebook this week, which clearly outlines all the elements of an abusive relationship. So I'm just going to read through the story, and then at the end of it, we're going to pick out the issues one by one so that if you compare yours to it and it's the same, then you know that you are in an abusive relationship. So this is what somebody, a lady, wrote, and it is a true story. So that's our case study for tonight. So follow along with me. Okay. So the beginning of our relationship had all the marks of a typical new love. Let me see. Did I miss the beginning? And if you're on, just send me a message. Let me know you're on so that we can acknowledge you, and then also send your questions, and then we can have a discussion as usual. Okay. And this lady writes, I'm currently not living with my parents. I moved because of school, but I have not gone back even though I have graduated. I wanted to enjoy better opportunities where I live now. I find myself in an emotionally draining situation, and every time I leave the situation, I end up going back because of the benefits attached to it. I adored my boyfriend because he was everything to me. He worshipped me too. He did everything to prove that he was madly in love with me. The beginning of our relationship had all the marks of a typical new love. We were inseparable. All of a sudden, I found my movements restricted. I used to have a lot of friends until I woke up one day and realized I didn't have anyone else in my life apart from him. He had bad things to say about everyone until I was completely cut off from them. I couldn't go to certain places as well because he did not approve. It was at this point that I started to feel I was in an abusive relationship. The whole relationship suffocated me. I started to pull away from him as a result, but he saw through it and held on tighter to me. He moved in with me and then moved out. Despite the changes, he continued to be caring and loving man. I felt he continued to be the caring and loving man that I fell in love with. Except all this time. Oh, sorry, I think I mixed a page. He continued to be the loving man that I fell in love with. Along the line, tragedy befell him. He lost both his parents in a car crash. I knew I should run away when we were having a heated argument shortly after the accident. I was ironing my clothes at the time. In his anger, he yelled, "If you don't shut up, I will burn you with that iron." When he calmed down, he apologized. Later, he threatened to stab me with a knife during another argument. Since that time, I started being careful. I tiptoed around him. I spoke in a softer tone. I massaged his ego whenever I felt him getting angry. Nothing I did prevented him from slapping me the next time he got angry. As always, he apologized and promised never to do that again. I reported him to my family and they asked me to leave him. I agreed, all right. But when he persisted with his apology, my heart softened. He said the sweetest words and told me he would die if he didn't have me in his life. You know, I almost lost everything when I lost my mom and my dad. You're the only person keeping me from losing myself to this darkness that is eating away at my sanity. Please stay with me. So I stayed. I chose love. That's what I told myself. Well, when my love stopped slapping me, he started squeezing parts of my body instead. He could grab my arm and squeeze it just because he was angry. If it was my leg he got hold of, so be it. And if it happened to be my throat, fair game. Why did I continue to stay after all this? I believe he has a good heart. His only problem is his lack of control over his demons. I am saying this because even when he is broke and I need something, he breaks his back to get it from me. This is what binds me to him: gratitude. Another reason I can't seem to shake him off is because he never lets me go. Yes, there was a time I broke up with him. I even changed my accommodation so he wouldn't find me. I don't know how he did it, but he stalked me until he got to know where I lived. He did everything possible for me to take him back, but I refused. Nonetheless, when my rent was due, he paid half of it for me. I was touched by this. Maybe it's not that bad. After all, he said he has changed. As soon as we got back together, this guy showed up at my place with his stuff and refused to leave. He had paid half of the rent, so what could I have done? Now we are living together again, and I hate it. I know no peace because of his constant tantrums when he sees me talking to another man. When I tell him he's doing too much, he tells me, "You're saying this because you don't know a good thing when you see it. No matter what you say, I am good for you." He has drained me to the point where I even tried to take my life one day. He doesn't get physical anymore, but I have no breathing space. I even dread going home when I close from work because I cannot bear to see his face any longer. I don't have friends close to where I live because he hacks my phone and sends messages to my contacts asking them to stay away from me. Some of these people are my work colleagues and acquaintances from church, but he doesn't care. I want to leave, but I don't know where to run to. I feel stuck. I feel so drained. I just want to be free, but he seems to know where I am at all times. I haven't involved the police yet, and neither have I gone to my family about him again. They said they warned me, but I didn't listen. So I'm on my own. Please, what do I do to get out of this? And this particular story is heartbreaking, and it's a typical story of what an abusive relationship looks like. Hello, Mami Nikwe. I'm excited you're here. I hope you heard our story because that's what we're going to base today's discussion on. And please keep the questions coming. I love them and I want them in. Okay, so let's break it down. When she was narrating her ordeal, she did say that they had a beautiful beginning. She was actually swept off her feet. And that is typical about abusive relationships or marriages. The beginning is sweeter than normal. It is really fast, it is really exciting, and it has very high highs. And sometimes it really moves much faster than normal. That is why people advise that when you meet somebody you're head over heels in love with, give it time. Let time unravel their character to you before you get married. Because if you meet somebody and you get married within 3 months, 6 months, the person is able to show you heaven for that 3 months. And then after you get married to them, they'll show you their true colors. So, typical of abusive marriages or relationships, the beginning is always beautiful and exciting and very mind blowing and head over heels. The second part is you begin to notice restrictions and isolation as you go along. They begin to draw you away from your friends. It's like they start saying bad things about the people around you, your family, your friends, your support system. They start telling you this person is bad, this person did this, and the way you love them, the way you're falling head over heels with them, when they say anything bad about anybody, you know they don't want the person around you. And what do you do for people you love? You just cut the other people off so that you can keep this person in your life. So slowly you begin to cut people off. And the lady talked about that in her story. The other thing is that you realize that the relationship is not nice anymore. You feel restricted, you are not yourself, you are not happy, and then you try to leave. The minute you try to leave, they will start doing nice things again and being the person they were in the beginning. And then you begin to think, oh, this is the person that I fell in love with. That person is still there. They haven't gone anywhere. Maybe things change for a minute, but that person is still there. So it's okay. All is well and good. Let's move forward. And then you move on to the next stage, violence setting. There can be verbal violence, emotional, there can be verbal abuse, emotional abuse, or physical abuse. And then, right after they have abused you, they will apologize and they'll blame anything but themselves. They can blame the weather, they can blame the food they ate, they can blame their boss. They will blame anything but themselves. They will never be the problem, it will be something else. That should tell you you are not in a normal relationship. You are in an abusive relationship, because the one you're with never takes accountability for their own actions. And until you accept your faults, you never change. So it means it will definitely happen. And then the next stage is that you change. You do everything in your power not to annoy them or bring out what causes them to abuse you. Because now you see yourself as a problem. You begin to think that maybe you're the one annoying them, making them act the way they are acting. So you begin to change your attitude and avoid anything that will annoy them. You'll be talking softer, you'll be tiptoeing around them. It's like you're living with them, but you are scared because you don't want to do anything to upset them. But even that does not help the situation. The cycle of abuse and apology continues for as long as the relationship is going to last. And this is the point where people go talk to their pastors and their family and a third party, because they feel like the relationship has gotten bad, they are not happy, their partner is not happy, and then they need help. And most of the time, this is the time that people will tell you, watch your actions. What have you been doing that has been annoying him? You should change your attitude. You should start dressing nicely. You should start making sure his meals are done on time, or her meals are done on time. And let me state categorically that is the research shows that more men than women are the abuser in abusive relationships. It's like 90% to 10%. So it's like in abusive relationship, when you take the data, 90% of the time is men who are the abusers, and 10% of the time is women who are the abusers. We are not saying women abusers don't exist, but we are talking about a 90% to a 10% picture over here. Okay, so the relationship then moves to the next stage when the abused person or the victim is tired. They've gotten to the end of their rope, and at the point that despite what everybody says, they are done and they want to move on. And then the abuser will be like, oh, they need you to survive. And that if you leave them, they will die. If you leave them, they cannot survive. And this is the point where you should know that if another human being who is not a baby depends on you for survival, then that human being is not okay. They are a problem. Nobody should be dependent on somebody such that when they leave them, they will die. No. Marriage is for two independent adults who come together to put their lives and their resources together to build something beautiful. They support each other, but they do not become the life source for each other. God is the only life source. So don't let anybody tell you that if you leave me, I will die. That will not happen. You are not the one holding their life. But that will be the argument that they will bring to you after noticing that you're done and then you want to move on. Others, and then even after saying that if you leave them, they will die. When you stay, they will still not stop their abusive lifestyle. They expect you to just take them as they are and allow them to continue to abuse you. And then you get to the stage when you finally decide you cannot help them, and then you try to leave again. This is a dance of I'm tired, I'm leaving, they beg you, and then you stay. I'm tired, I'm leaving, they beg you again, and then you stay. I'm tired, I'm leaving. If you leave me, I will die. Then they come and beg you again, and then you stay. And then in the last place, you're like, you know what? I can't help you. It's over. I'm leaving. And this is the point where they will force you to stay. Now they are not begging you again. They are forcing you to stay, and they'll tell you that the way you are, they are the only person who can love you. Nobody will want you. You are not good enough. It is only them who can love you. And then they will also try to physically stop you from leaving. If it's your money, they'll steal it. If it's your car, they'll take your keys. They'll physically block every chance that you have to leave them. And so there's a point that you can get to your breaking point. At this point, you even want to commit suicide, because, or you want to harm yourself, because like you're under so much stress, you're unhappy, they're unhappy, and you don't know what is going on. You just want to leave. And now they've gotten to the point that they are physically restraining you. They don't want you to leave because they keep tabs on you and physically prevent you from leaving. They can also warn your contacts to stay away from you and start mouthing you to all the people that you know. So there'll be all kinds of stories about you out there, and you don't even know where the story has been spread to. And unfortunately, at this point, if you persist in trying to move on, they could kill you. And many cases of that have happened. Last year, in the Ghanaian community alone, there were about 3 cases like that. One pastor whose wife was a nurse and they've been having issues. The wife decided to move. She packed out and left. This man took a gun, met her at her workplace, and gunned her down. There was another person who said the wife had found a girlfriend and was trying to leave him, and then he shot at the wife. Up to now, I don't know how that ended, whether the wife died. He shot at the wife, aiming to kill her, and then killed himself. But before he killed himself, he made an audio to say how they should bury him and how they should divide his property and all that. He made a death note or whatever. I've forgotten the actual name. But yes, he decided that if the wife was going to leave him, then he was going to kill her. He actually tried to kill her. I don't know whether this lady survived, but she was in critical condition for a while. So these stories exist. These stories exist and they happen all the time. That the last point of an abusive relationship is that one partner will try to kill the perpetrator, the abuser will try to kill the victim. So what's the import of today's topic? We want to reiterate that not all marriages are the same. There are 2 main kinds of marriages: regular, normal marriages or relationships, and toxic and abusive relationships or marriages. We've just outlined clearly by somebody's true story of how things progress in an abusive relationship. So if you are hearing this and your relationship or your marriage is following these patterns, then you should know that you're not in a normal relationship. This is not the kind of relationship that you can use advice to get out of. For this relationship, it will take God, because whoever the victim is not operating out of their reasonable brain. They are operating out of some trauma and some disordered mindset. And nothing you can ever do will please them or heal them or make them change. And what we realize is that most of the time in abusive relationship, the victim just wants the violence to stop. They still are in love with this person because, like we said in the beginning, it's just like every normal relationship, but just that in this relationship, the highs are really high. It's extremely exciting. Everything you want, you get. It's like you are walking on the clouds. You begin to trust this person totally, and then they switch on you and they begin to restrict your movements. They begin to control you. They begin to exert extreme power over you. And it will not take you only today to find out about abusive relationships and how to walk away from them. If you think you're in an abusive relationship, this should just open your eyes a little bit to what you're dealing with and help you to find more information. Go online, talk to somebody, start researching, getting more information, and be sure of what you're dealing with, because along with finding more information comes with finding tips and tools of how to deal with it. So, if at this point you believe that you are not in a normal marriage, you're not in a normal relationship, but you are in an abusive relationship, what are some of the things that you could do? The first thing is that you need to rebuild yourself and your connections. Because we read in the story that an abuser will try to separate you from your support system. They'll try to bring trouble between you and your family, and they'll bring trouble between you and your friends, so that in the day of trouble, in the day that they try to harm you, there'll be nobody to help you. So when you find out you are in an abusive marriage or an abusive relationship, it's time to rebuild yourself. Find your friends again, rebuild your connections, rebuild your relationships with them. And more important than anything else, you need to rebuild your relationship with God. You need to make sure that you and God, you are intimate with God. You can depend on God. You are able to pray and receive answers, because you will need your relationship with God. It's the Holy Spirit that will tell you what to do, that will protect you, that will help you come to a place where you are safe and secure. So if I were you, that's the number one thing I'll do. Get more intimate with God. But on top of that, you need to rebuild your social connections with your family and your friends and all the people who form your network. You need to revive and rebuild and make sure that you have a healthy support system. The second thing is to find help to deal with your own trauma. To be honest, it takes vulnerable people to fall into the hands of abusers. People who are hungry for love, people who are empty inside and are waiting for somebody to love them and take all their problems away. One thing we all need to realize is that as human beings and as adults, nobody can be a god to you. Your life is your responsibility. You need to take control of your own life. You should never, ever, ever relinquish the control of your life to another human being. It is only God that can take control of your life. So you should never get to the point where you hand over control to another person to take care of you. It is only babies that need to be taken care of by adults. And even then, once you're 18, it's time to take care of yourself. It's time to make your own decisions. Your life should never be in the hands of somebody else to tell you what to do, to decide what you do and what you don't do. You need to maintain your independence. So if you're hungry for love, if you're ready to give it all to somebody else, that makes you very vulnerable to an abuser, because they will lure you with their kind acts. They'll lure you with a ton of love. And then when you're hooked, they will clamp you down and control you and abuse you. Because for some weird reason, abusers gain energy and power from maltreating their victims, from controlling their victims and making them miserable. The more miserable you get, the more power it gives them. So you need to be careful. Find help for your own ongoing problems, your own background issues that you're trying to let another person handle for you. Because it's like you are open for help and they are available to help. And then you find yourself in an abusive situation. The other thing you can do is learn about narcissism. If you don't know what narcissism is, thank God for that. But from today, go on the internet and start researching, start learning. This information cannot come to you by walking about not searching for it. You need to search for it. You need to find videos. You need to try to understand, because until you understand, a lot of things will be confusing for you. Until you understand, you think all people are the same. No, they are normal people and there are narcissists. You cannot treat narcissists like normal people. And if you find yourself married to a narcissist, you're in big trouble. But that's not the end of your life. There are ways and there are tools. So it's up to you to be a student of narcissism. Find out what it is and find out how you can get help, because you can never get up one day and walk away. You could lose your life. You will die right there. And it's not like we are joking or we are using empty words. It's happened to people. Do not be the next victim. Okay. And the other thing that you can also do is that you need to plan your escape. If you find out you're dealing with a narcissist, you need to plan your escape. You can never get up and walk away. Many people who just got up to walk away, they ended up dying. Getting up to walk away can end your life. You need to plan your escape. And that will all come from learning more about the whole situation, rebuilding your support system, making sure your relationship with God is strong before you make a move. You can never just get up and walk in an abusive marriage or abusive relationship. That is way more dangerous than staying in it. So if you think you might be in a slightly abusive relationship, go study, learn more, find the tools. I cannot tell you everything in 20 minutes. Go searching, find answers for yourself. But all I can tell you is that rebuild your support system, rebuild your finances, talk to make sure your relationship with God is solid and active and strong, because you need God every day, and especially if you're in an abusive relationship. And you also need to plan your escape. Don't just get up and walk. That action could end your life. Plan, be prepared, have the tools. So go and research and find out what to do. If you need help, you can reach out to us, but we cannot tell you everything in 20 minutes. Okay. And you also need to remember that domestic violence is not about being male or female, it's about power and control. One person in the marriage trying to have total power and total control over the other person. The abuser trying to have power and control over the victim. And in a lot of abusive marriages, the victims just want to stay with the offender, the abuser, and they don't want to leave him. They just want the violence to stop. So most of them stay with the hope that one day the violence will stop. But if there is violence, it is possible that you're dealing with an abuser. And an abuser is a complete package. It's not just somebody trying to um, exert violence on you. No, it's a complete package. It started from somewhere. The violence will not just stop and the rest be fine. It's part of the whole deal. So you can't just take the violence out and take the person. The real person is still there. And a lot of times people say that, oh, he's a good person. He just lost his temper. No. When abusers are under pressure, that is when the real them comes out. When you say something that triggers an abuser, that is when you see the real person. The time that they are all nice and smiling with you, that is not the true person. The true person is when you trigger them and then they have no defenses. They haven't had time to think. Now they are acting like raw with no filters. That is the real person. The real person is not that person loving you, giving you gifts. And how you know that they don't love you is that they will abuse you and come back and apologize and then abuse you again. That should tell you right there that they don't love you. Somebody who loves you will not abuse you, apologize, and do it again. It's often said that the best form of apology is changed behavior. If somebody keeps apologizing to you but does not change their attitude, they don't mean what they said. They were only lying to you. And if they have a problem that they are not dealing with or they are not getting help from, and you are the one suffering for it, that should tell you that you're just a punching bag. They don't love you. They don't care about you. Because if they did, they'll remove themselves from the situation and get help so that they won't harm you anymore. And don't forget that an abuser gets power. He gets energy from your unhappiness. So don't sit down and think that all marriages are the same and that the advice that is given, be patient, go back, make peace, will work for an abusive relationship. With an abusive relationship, it's just downhill because you are not dealing with a regular person. You are dealing with somebody with a dangerous and different mindset. And the data shows that it's very hard for these people to change because their brains are kind of rewired. They thrive on making their victims unhappy. So this is a long one. This is a grim one, but this is nonetheless very important because this story that this lady shared, she's living it. It's her true life story. And there's been many stories like her. Do not make the mistake of treating an abusive marriage or relationship like a normal one because you never get the same results. With an abusive marriage or relationship, the thing to do, walk, but follow the steps that we talked about earlier. So at this point, if we do not have any questions, we will go ahead and end this discussion right here. If we later on find some questions, we will come back and address it. So if you have a question now is a good time to type the question really quick because in the next minute or so, we will end this episode for tonight. And one thing I would have you remember is that when you have God, there is nothing that will be able to take you out. You need God in your life for always. But especially if you are in an abusive relationship or marriage, your best bet is to have God in your life. So when we keep saying that it takes a good Christian to have a Christian marriage, and also that it takes the man, the woman, and God to make a marriage work, these are some of the reasons why it matters so much. Marriage is supernatural. You cannot marry with your natural mind. You could be married with your natural mind, yes, but when you do that, you just signing up for whatever can come, can come. If you want marriage as it should be, if you want your marriage to survive, the best thing to do is to have a good relationship with God through Jesus Christ. That will save you in whatever situation that you find yourself in. That is your surest bet for life. That is the bet that you will never lose in. So tonight, I didn't come to bring you doom. I just came to draw your attention to the fact that it's not all advice that work for all kinds of marriages. Some marriages are abusive. And if you are in an abusive marriage, the normal advice will not work for you. It will only make things worse. It will only delay your freedom. So take note. The few points that we've shared tonight, apply them to your marriage. See if you're in a regular marriage or you're in an abusive marriage. Of course, we just gave tips for an abusive marriage. But if you find the tips for an abusive marriage and your marriage is not that, then you know that, hooray, you're in a regular marriage. So the challenges that you face, they are regular. And that's all the regular marriage advice will work. But if you find yourself in an abusive marriage, you have to get to work. We've given some tips. Go work on that. Mami Nikwe says, is it okay for believers to continue to endure abusive marriage and believe God for change to come? Mami Nikwe, God will not come down from heaven to save you from an abusive marriage. In the way that he has given man free will, that is the same way that he expects you to make a decision concerning your abusive marriage. If you are in a typical abusive marriage, the thing to do is to follow the steps. Learn more about your situation. Find help for yourself to become stronger. Rebuild your connections and your support system, and then plan your escape. That's the best thing to do in an abusive marriage. But of course, everybody has free will. If you choose to stay, happy staying. That's your choice. And to be very honest, it's not every abusive marriage that you can walk out of. Oh. Sometimes your life will be worse off. That is why I keep saying that you need to go find more information. The more you learn, the more you would know. There's no way I can teach you everything in 20 minutes. It won't happen. So go and research, find out more, find out what your options are. Sometimes your best bet would be to stay in it, but you cannot stay in it and act regular. If you decide to stay, you need to change your attitude. You need to change your tactics. You need to learn certain things that will make it safe for you to stay. Because to be very honest with you, if you're in an abusive relationship, sometimes the safest place to be is to stay. But it all depends on a whole lot of factors. The best place to be is not to be in an abusive marriage, but staying is also a good option. It depends on your circumstances and your personal choice. But one thing I would say is never allow your family, your church, or anybody to tell you to stay in a situation that you yourself know is killing you. You should make sure that you are the final authority in your life. If the thing is killing you, get up and walk. But don't just get up and walk. Learn more about your situation and plan your exit. But let your decision be yours. Don't let anybody tell you to stay. If they want you to stay, give them your address and tell them to come and stay in your place. If it's your decision to stay, then you know what is best for you. But don't let anybody else tell you to stay. Make sure you're making up your own mind and choosing what is best for you. But we would always say that sometimes when you don't have your support system around you, when you are not in a healthy place, you are not sound enough to take the decisions you need to take. People have left abusive marriages and gone back because their life became worse because they themselves, they are not strong enough to stand on their own. So it's a whole complicated enterprise. That is why it's important that you go and find out more, learn more, do your research, get informed, get help. Then you'll be in a better position to take your next move. So, Mami Nikri, that was a long answer, but I hope you found your answer in there somewhere. So, if there are no more questions, thank you for joining us tonight. God bless you in whatever time that you are watching us. We pray that you found something that would help. If you have comments, just leave them under the chat. So until we come your way again, God willing, next week, 6 p.m. Central Time, let's always remember that it takes a good Christian to have a good Christian marriage. And until we meet again, God bless your marriage. Bye-bye.